Hi, I'm Jenna,
And I'm Erin.
and welcome to Between Two Violin Cabinets, where we bring you tips, trends, troubles, and stories from HR.
That's right. And today is May 31st, which means we are on the eve of summer, really, now that it's post Memorial Day weekend. So, vacation is on the brain, and a new trend that we're kind of noticing, Jenna, maybe you can kind of explain it a little bit, is vacation shaming.
Yeah, vacation shaming. So we've heard a lot about this. In fact, our colleague Carrie Klosterman also just recently wrote a blog article about this, which kind of got us thinking about it. But vacation shaming is when you want to take a vacation, but your coworkers might make you feel a little guilty for doing it, right? There's so much work. How are things going to get done? And they might be, sometimes it might be really blatant, or sometimes it might be more passive, aggressive, maybe an email that's like, hey, enjoy your vacation, those types of things. And I think combined with the sort of vacation shaming is just people feeling guilty about taking the time off. In fact, Carrie Klosterman, our Director of Research and Compensation, in the article that she wrote, she was saying that more than half of workers feel shamed by their coworkers or feel guilt. And that's up 10% since they did the same survey 2 years ago.
That's terrible. That is
Yeah.
so terrible. Yeah, no, I noticed that too. It's funny. It's like kind of the same mentality we have around taking breaks or, like not eating through our lunch or something, as feeling like either it's not allowed or just feeling guilty for it. And so it's so hard to kind of remind ourselves that when we don't do that, we're actually a lot less effective when we're not taking those vacations and breaks.
Right. Yeah. And where's that pressure coming from? Is it coming from the coworkers? Is it something that's self-imposed? I was working with another organization and they were kind of like, this, we tell this person they need to be taking their vacation, but they just feel like they can't. And so, we talked about really kind of exploring with them, where's that coming from? Is there, something that they're saying, take your vacation, but really they're meaning like, man, you've got a lot to do? Or is it really like, what am I going to do with myself? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do on a vacation. So you always kind of want to look into where that's coming from. Another one that I have heard from other organizations that I work with is where companies have a very rich benefit that they offer, but employees feel like taking the time is really not worth it, because then they're like, when I get back, I have to just fill in for everyone else. So it's not
Mhm.
really like taking a vacation. So yeah, I took 40 hours, but then I had to work an extra 20 when I got back
Mhm.
because we're so short staffed or things like that. So there's so many different factors involved in that. And Erin, you kind of mentioned of, the importance of taking the time off. And I think probably, being in the line of work that we are, we understand the value of that. And another survey that I was looking at, it was said that 61% of senior leaders actually leave time on the table, meaning they're not taking the time off, despite the fact that also the majority of those senior leaders are saying like, yep, we know the importance of it. It is for rest, relaxation, rejuvenation, but they're the ones that are the worst at actually taking the time off.
And this is really terrible from a credibility standpoint.
Right.
So, I mean, what do you think people are paying attention to? What you're saying, go take your vacation, or what you're doing, not taking vacation? And so it's a real credibility issue. And so, there are great reasons to take those vacations from a standpoint of being effective and getting the results that we want because we're not burnt out and harried, we're making better decisions. There's also the argument that if you're not modeling that for your people, then your people aren't going to be taking those vacations or breaks either. And so
Right.
you're kind of creating a culture of burnout, really.
Right. And probably also the guilt, because if they're looking at their manager going, well, they're never taking time off, is that going to look bad on me? And so I might feel that pressure, that guilt, that shame into taking that time off.
Right, absolutely. And so, yeah, no, it just kind of reinforces itself, unfortunately, and
Right.
becomes kind of a cycle.
Yeah. So what are some tips that you might have to help with this vacation shaming and guilt?
Well, I think some of it, so hopefully nobody, or in ideal situations, we're modeling it, right? So people aren't going to be as likely to feel that shame. Another thing I think is to check in with people to see, what their plans are. And so you had some statistics about that, didn't you? About people who plan their vacation?
Yeah, some really interesting ones there that 52% of people who actually plan their vacation, so they take time intentionally to plan their vacation, 52% of those people use up all of their vacation time compared to 40% of people who don't plan it. So just planning it improves the odds that people are actually going to be taking that time off. And the other interesting part of that, I know we're throwing a lot of statistics at you, but they're just really interesting, is that 75% of the people who are those planners take at least 40 consecutive hours of vacation time compared to only 18% of those who don't plan. So when we look at sort of what we want employees getting that maximum benefit, planning seems to have a pretty big impact on not only taking up the time, but also taking longer periods of time to actually rest and rejuvenate and get all of those benefits that we want people to have so that when they come back to work that they feel refreshed and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because that's actually a great thing that came up today. So one of the classes that we did today is about avoiding burnout and managing stress. And one of those is taking breaks. And someone had an idea of, so one of their break ideas of what to do was planning their next vacation or planning a vacation, just the idea. So you get a little 2-for-1, something to do for breaks, right? It makes it more likely you're going to take a vacation, makes it more likely you're going to take a good vacation, a restorative vacation, rather than just a day here and there, but kind of a nice chunk of time. And so I think that that's huge. And then also just challenging whatever guilt that we feel. So sometimes, again, the shame isn't coming from anywhere else. People are encouraging us to do it, and we still feel guilty. And so reminding ourselves that we're kind of garbage when we feel burnt out. And so if we really want to show up for our team, show up for our organization, our mission, we need to be taking those vacations and actually modeling it for other people. Otherwise, we kind of look like we're not very believable.
Yeah. And I think that in that, people who are planning the vacation are probably also planning for the part of actually being out. And so that might help reduce some of their stress so that they've got probably a plan in place for making sure that things are covered and probably which also reduces some of the shame and guilt that they may be feeling, probably also by their coworkers as well, because maybe, people who don't plan, they're kind of like, oh yeah, I'm taking Friday and Monday off and there hasn't been a lot of planning, and their coworkers are like, what? Versus the planning, probably going through that whole process to make sure, okay, we've got everything covered. So better situation for probably everyone all around.
That's right. That kind of brings us to maybe our topic for next week. Now that we're kind of have summer brain or on the verge of kind of this vacation time, is whether or not to check email or check in with work while on vacation.
Right.
We'll kind of talk a little bit next week about some of the pros and cons. And if people want to weigh in, they can either comment below or send an email to me or to Jenna.
Sounds good. Well, let's file this one under vacations part 1. And we will get to vacations part 2 next week.
Okay,
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks.